Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 3 review series. And today I'm going to be talking about episode 9, The Dress, which I have just finished watching. And what more can I say about this show that hasn't been already said? Absolutely fantastic, and once again came through with another top-notch episode. I really enjoyed this one a lot, and this one was very good. And in my opinion, Superman and Lois is the best DC show going right now, and soon to be the only DC show standing as it stands at this present moment. But that's for another conversation for another time. So, this episode, as I mentioned, was very good. We were treated to a couple of nice flashbacks with Lois and Clark. And we also saw in this episode Lois is continuing to deal with her cancer as she's up for an operation which will possibly see both of her breasts removed. So, this was a very emotional driven episode. And, it was very good to see how Clark's trying to deal with Lois's cancer, and of course, Lois trying to deal with what happens in the aftermath of her operation, heart to heart with Lana about certain things. And this episode in particular, why it's called The Dress, is a very nice little thing to do with a dress that Lois wore many years earlier that Clark bought for her to wear for a nomination party, which I'll get into in a moment. So we got lots of nice moments with Lois and Clark, and Bruno Mannheim is continuing to be built up as the big bad, but he's also now kind of being portrayed as a sympathetic figure. Not entirely, of course. And also, we finally learned that Bruno Mannheim's wife Pia is really onomatopoeia, and she is also dying with cancer with only weeks to live. So this episode had it all, really picked its game up in a big way, and the momentum for this show just continues to keep getting stronger and stronger. And the bar in terms of quality is just being set at an all-time high. It's really, really high and really, really good. So, as always, I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far. And then after that, we're going to get straight into talking about episode 9. So, as we saw back in episode 8, we saw Carl Cushion promote Jonathan to be a part of the Smallville Fire Brigade. And we saw Jordan getting involved, putting out the fire, which of course led to Jonathan getting suspended from the fire brigade because Kyle believed that he disobeyed orders. And we also saw Natalie finally meet Mateo's parents, who turn out to be Pia and Bruno Mannheim. So you can imagine what's happened there. And John Henry Irons showed up at the dinner, and it's just led into an all out war between Bruno Mannheim and John Henry Irons. And we saw Pia using her powers to subdue John Henry Irons, and we saw her pretty much use her powers to the fullest, to the point that she pretty much collapsed. And we also learned in episode 8 that Bruno Mannheim may have possibly framed Lex Luthor and had him wrongfully imprisoned. And we saw Superman take Pia to the DoD where her powers were contained and she was kept under strict observation. And we also saw at the end John Henry Irons orders his daughter Natalie not to see Mateo ever again. And we see Mateo and his dad arguing. And while all of this is going on, deep in the basement's lab of Bruno Mannheim, we saw Bizarro's eyes open. So Bizarro is alive and well, but he didn't appear in episode 9, not officially anyway, but he is back. And we learned a very interesting thing about why Bruno Mannheim has Bizarro's body. But a great way to end episode 8 and a very cool setup for episode 9. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 9, The Dress. So, this episode starts off 17 years ago in the past with a flashback where we see Clark buys Lois a dress to wear to a gala for her nomination for a journalism award. And we see in the present, Jordan asks Jonathan not to tell their parents about what Kyle said and about being suspended from the Smallville Fire Brigade. We also see at the DoD, John demands that Bruno Mannheim turn over all of the stolen DoD assets in exchange for visiting Pia. And this episode pretty much plays up the beef between Bruno Mannheim and John Henry Irons. Bear in mind that the John Henry Irons that was killed by Bruno Mannheim's men was a doppelganger, so it's kind of a contingent of that beef. And we also see with Mannheim's lawyer present, Mannheim refuses to hand over anything that he may have stolen, and this leads to Bruno Mannheim's men attacking John Henry and Natalie, but they pull back due to witnesses in the streets. John Henry retaliates by leading on a DoD raid on Mannheim's apartment, and this leads to Superman interrupting. And throughout this episode, we see Superman and John Henry Irons clashing with how to deal with Bruno Mannheim. And we see Sam Lane has John Henry sent home. And we also see Lois is trying to get rid of this red dress that Clark bought for her many years earlier. And we see her and Lois having a heart to heart about Lois's upcoming operation, which could possibly see both of her breasts removed. We also see Jonathan advises Natalie to give up on seeing Mateo, but he later apologizes and arranges for Mateo to come to Smallville to see Natalie. And Natalie learns that John has been keeping Pia from seeing her family. We also see Mannheim orders Dr. Hook to dispatch a revived Miller to attack John, and we see Miller end up wrecking his house, and we see all of the street end up getting destroyed in the process. And we see Superman get involved as well, but this leads to John killing Miller in self defense in front of everyone, much to the shock of everyone in Smallville and to the disappointment of Superman, who says that there's always another way, there's always a choice, even though John Henry is defiantly in his actions saying, I had no other choice. We later see Bruno Mannheim show Mateo the body of Bizarro and explains to his son that he is going to use Bizarro's corpse to create a cure to save his mother. And we also see at the end Lois puts on her dress and flies with Clark. And that's how we end episode 9. Overall, fantastic episode. Loved the little flashbacks with Lois and Clark. At least we know why this dress was so symbolic and very special to Clark, and of course to Lois as well. And we really get to see some real life drama played out as far as Lois's cancer is concerned and the way that she deals with things. And I thought the way they delved into the physical nature of how cancer can affect people was very deep stuff, but I thought the show handled it very, very well. And Bruno Mannheim revealing that he plans to use Bizarro's body to create a cure to help Pia. At least we know now what the real agenda is. Where could this lead to? Who knows? But very gripping stuff. But overall, this was a top notch episode, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of this is going to play out. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 9? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of Bruno Mannheim's plans to use Bizarro's body to create a cure for his wife Pia? How do you think this is going to play out? Do you think there could be some disastrous effects with this experiment? And also, what did you think of the flashbacks with Lois and Clark involving this special dress that Clark bought for her? Did you enjoy that? And also, how do you think the show's been handling Lois's cancer? Do you think they've been handling it very well? And also, what do you think is going to happen with Natalie and Mateo? Do you think they will end up together? or do you think Matteo is going to stay loyal with his family? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 3 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 10, which I'm very much looking forward to talking about, especially with the way this episode played out and the way it ended. It's going to be a very good one, and I'm really looking forward to it already. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.